We're talking with Congressman Peter King, but first, as the presidential campaign heats up, there are charges and countercharges about who lost Iraq and who opened the door to a new wave of terrorism. Former Vice President Dick Cheney is back. He's fanning those flames with a new book. It's co-written with his daughter Liz, and it's titled Exceptional: Why the World Needs a Powerful America. Dick Cheney spoke about it with CNN's special correspondent Jamie Gangel.
You in the book blamed the spread of ISIS on President Obama. He says it's your fault that Bush Cheney left the region unstable.
Well, I think he's wrong. Look at the record. We had a situation in which by the time we got through the surge in 07 and 08, President Bush made a very courageous decision, very correct decision, and Iraq was in good shape when we left office, and Barack Obama said as much. What happened basically was they failed to follow through. They withdrew as quickly as possible and left no stay-behind force there. They created a vacuum, and the vacuum was filled by ISIS.
How dangerous do you really think ISIS is now to Homeland Security, American soil?
I think extraordinarily dangerous, partly because of their ability to recruit from the United States people to become members of ISIS, to go to Syria, Iraq, and so forth. I think the danger of having those people return, having trained, for example, over there, or their ability to motivate people in the United States and elsewhere in other parts of the world to become ardent followers, if you will, of that ideology and sacrifice themselves in the name of killing infidels. I think that possibility is increasing, and I think ISIS is very dangerous indeed, especially if you think about the prospects of nuclear weapons being developed in the Middle East.
Do you think we could see another major 9/11 style attack on American soil?
I think we could see another 9/11 style attack with much deadlier weapons. I worry if they use chemicals or biological agents or nuclear weapons. Remember, the weapon they used on 9/11, airline tickets and box cutters. That was a difficult, terrible day for us. 3,000 casualties. It'll be a lot worse if they find deadlier weapons.
And you can watch Jamie's full interview with former Vice President Cheney tomorrow night on Anderson Cooper 360 at 8 Eastern. I want to talk about this now with Republican Congressman Peter King. He's back with us. He's a member of the Intelligence and Homeland Security Committees. So, sir, I wonder, do you think there's any indication that ISIS could launch a chemical weapons attack inside the U.S., this concern that we heard from the Vice President, from the former Vice President?
Well, I think everyone in the intelligence community and the law enforcement community is concerned that ISIS would do this. Now, I'm not saying there's any evidence that they have chemical weapons now, but I think we have to assume that any of these Islamist terrorist groups, if they get the capacity to get chemical, biological, or radiological weapons, that they would definitely use them. I mean, in New York, we have a Secure the Cities program set up, a multi-million-dollar operation to detect any type of radiation. So as far as chemicals and biologicals, I mean, I can assure you that within the government itself, for the last 15 years, you have various government agencies working on antidotes for these type of attacks, what type of both preventive and also reactive measures can be taken. So while I'm not aware of any evidence right now that ISIS has chemicals, we have to assume that they would try to use them if they get access to them.
Part of the blame game between Democrats and Republicans over Iraq, for instance, played out, I think, in this interview with the former vice president. He said he refuted this idea that the invasion of Iraq by the Bush administration created instability in the region that gave ISIS and al-Qaeda a toehold there. What was your reaction to that?
I agree with the vice president. I mean, obviously there was instability in 04, 05, and 06. But with the surge in 07 and 08, by the time President Obama came to office, I mean, he himself said that Iraq was stable and secure, and that was the rationale that he gave for withdrawing our troops, that there was stability in Iraq, that it was a government capable of defending itself and capable of providing political leadership. So it's clear in my mind, if the president had not withdrawn the troops so precipitously and made it clear that he wanted to get out, that ISIS would not have the foothold or the strength that it has today.
But a lot of critics of the Bush administration's war in Iraq, invasion of Iraq, will say if that hadn't begun, ISIS wouldn't have had this toehold. Is there any truth to that?
Well, if the war in Iraq hadn't begun, Saddam Hussein would still be in power, and as far as the world would know, including the Allies, they thought he had the chemical and biological weapons, as every leading Democrat in the Senate did and in the House, and as did all the Allies in the Middle East. And also Libya would not have turned over its nuclear weapons. The fact is, you take the world the way it's given to you, and as at the time President Obama took over, there was stability in Iraq. Iraq was a stable country, and that's why he himself said he was going to withdraw the troops. I was in Iraq both during the tough times in 04, 03, and 04, and then back there in 07 and 010. And the difference, even in 07 and then in 2010, that was a stable country. Now, it was not perfect, but it was nowhere near what it is today. And ISIS, and actually then it was known as Al-Qaeda in Iraq, had basically been decimated.
Let me ask you specifically about ISIS's leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He was held in a U.S. detention center for 4 years. This was during the U.S.-led invasion. And he emerged as an al-Qaeda leader, now as head of ISIS. The U.S. presence in Iraq, the war on terror, didn't it, in a way, I hear you saying that you deal with the world as you were given it if you're a president. But didn't that directly coalesce jihadists against the U.S.?
Well, we can say that, no, first of all, prior to 9/11, jihadists were coalesced against the U.S. already. So, I mean, and all we did, the only time the U.S. used troops during the 1990s was in defense of Muslims against Orthodox Christians in Bosnia and in Serbia. And yet we still had attacks by Islamists. So they were going to attack us no matter what. I think to blame Iraq as to why Islamists coalesced against us is just a misreading of history. The fact is that President Bush took the action he thought he had to take then. And for instance, we could say that World War II led to communist expansion in Eastern Europe, but it also defeated Hitler. And yet then we had to meet that expansion of Eastern Europe. That would be like Harry Truman saying in 1946 and 1947, we're not going to do anything about Soviet expansion because Roosevelt caused this by going to war against Hitler. The fact is there's always actions and reactions. And the fact is that as of 2007, 2008, Iraq was stable, and President Obama clearly dropped the ball in 2010 and 2011.
Congressman Peter King, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brianna.